This online world is a very ungrounded intellectual space. The leadership lesson is to remember people have bodies. So in the office, we would get a cup of coffee together. We would stand and make tea, or we would do something, and there was this very physical engagement that created a community, a place of marking that we're starting this. So I think the leadership lesson is to find creative and innovative ways to help people connect to their bodies and themselves at the start and the end of meetings.
We've more or less finished with the interviews now, and you're doing the transcriptions.
That is correct, yes.
What are you finding?
So I think I was chatting to a friend yesterday about this, and I realized it's probably a bigger reflection point than I'd made it before. As I've been talking to each person, it's interesting to notice what people have lost. So what is it that they're feeling a sense of grief around? And so there is plenty of grief for many people, not necessarily only around loss of life, but a loss of structure, a loss of normality, a loss of the way my life was. And so this grief that exists sort of underpinning a lot of what's going on for people is there. And one of the ways it manifests itself most specifically is people talking about the loss of ritual. And they can use that language. They even say it like that. And so that's started to become something that I've noticed and have started reflecting on, is what is that about? And when I say loss of ritual, there's obviously the rituals that we have in our life, going to church, going to the shops, going to our parents, going to friends, these sorts of things, the sort of things we would do, our favorite restaurant, you know, the sort of anchors in our life that are on repeat, that those have been missing for people. And then also the rituals at work that people are really, really battling to try and replicate. So one of the primary ones is the ritual of my day starting and ending. So many people have found that they miss the drive to work, not necessarily only because of the drive and the time they had, but it marks a start and an end. And so some of the people that have been experiencing quite severe burnout, they said to me they don't know when their day ends and begins. It's sort of like everything's just fluid in their life. And so especially people that don't have a separate office or separate workspace. I have some people that have specifically said they mark the end of the week by packing away their laptop and clearing up their house so it doesn't look like it's got anything to do with work anymore. Other people have a different sort of sense of that. So this idea of rituals and the loss that that has created for people, it is quite pervasive through all the interviews. There's a sort of subtle undertone of what people are talking about.
I remember you talking about the loss of Friday night drinks.
Yes. Or even, you know, on Tuesday morning after this meeting we go for coffee, or whatever it is, this sort of way that people are able to anchor themselves in time, I think is the insight that I've been having, is especially as I've noticed the sort of sense of burnout that we are investigating on the various levels. Is time is a very fluid sort of thing in our lives. It kind of, it just, you know, it can be like the waves of the ocean. It just is perpetual. It just keeps going. But our mind needs ways of marking things, of making it so that I have a sort of sense of time and space. And I think that's what the rituals give people, is the sort of sense of beginnings and endings and fluidity. And I know how to navigate that. It gives me a sense of order. And without it, what people are missing is meaning. And also they're missing a sort of place to know that they've made a contribution, that something has happened, to measure things. And it's a very interesting thing to start noticing that, to start seeing that, you know, the Groundhog Day scenario that seems to be in play for many people is because these markers of rituals in their world are missing, these anchors that keep them very grounded to what's going on and where they are and what's next. I suppose we need to find the blend of that. You'll see for many different people. If we look at Tony Robinson's needs analysis, when he looks at that sort of paradox between certainty and variety for human beings, that each of us have a sort of blend of routine and ritual and certainty to excitement and difference and variety, is in this chaotic world, people are looking for some sense of marker, some sense of stability to help them through it.
So what's the leadership lesson then? What's the opportunity?
So I think the two that have been coming to mind for me is that this online world is a very ungrounded intellectual space, and being able to make it more practical and physical for people is a really important thing to help them stay invested in themselves. What I mean by that is like connected to their body and their hearts and their emotions. Otherwise, it's just this intellectual play that happens. I go between this meeting, this task, this thing, etc., etc. I have no way of grounding myself. And so I think the leadership lesson is to remember people have bodies. And I know that sounds like a strange thing to say, but to remember people have bodies and people need time. They need to be anchored in something. So in the office, we would get a cup of coffee together. We would stand and make tea, or we would do something. And there was this very physical engagement that created a community, a place of marking that we're starting this. So I think the leadership lesson is to find creative and innovative ways to help people connect to their bodies and themselves at the start and the end of meetings, or at the start and the end of the week, or wherever you're wanting to do something this is the end, this is the beginning, rather than, hi, this is the content, okay, bye, I'll see you in the next 3 minutes kind of thing. So a random example is I asked each person in a session I was running the other day to show us their coffee mug, or to go and get a drink, coffee, tea, whatever it is, but to bring that in. And that just made everybody have like that space of, that's where we are, and this is Marx's beginning, and so on and so forth. So I think for leaders to do that, and also to honor the loss of routine in people's lives, and to work with your team around what would be the rituals we need for our own success going forward. I think there's a great place to reinvent new kinds of rituals. Rituals of, a different kind of meeting. Different, because people's space is also quite perpetual. They're in the same place. There's no movement. There's no navigating to something different. So again, telling people to go for a walk outside and show them their house, or do something different.